Hi there. I just wanted to connect for a moment, and today, October 1st, is quite a special day here in Catalunya. If you're unaware of the reason why, I invite you to research a little bit and try to find the reasons that I'm talking about. But I wanted to talk about being the change, because for me, this day reminds me of how I need to be the change even more. And we always hear the quote from Gandhi of, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And as I was looking at that quote before starting this video, I found an article that says that that actually wasn't his quote, that his quote was much longer, and I've put it in the description of this video. And yeah, I know I use that quote a lot, whoever's quote it was. And it can be confusing sometimes, and I wanted to clarify what it means for me. But first, I want to read the real quote. And it says, "We but mirror the world." So just that sentence, "we but mirror the world." I think maybe that is already a lot. "All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. We need not to wait to see what others do." And so I struggle a lot, because for me that's really clear, and it has been for most of my life. And I've battled a lot with that journey of being the change, because it's not always possible, because I'm acting out of an unconscious part of myself. And I can give an example. The other day, there was an event that was happening on the rooftop behind my home, right in front of my bedroom window. And it was before the event had started. I went up to the roof and I said, "Hey, what are the plans?" And as I was walking to find the person responsible, the person in charge, I thought, "Jamie, you should first introduce yourself, and you're the neighbor, and ask him his name." And I didn't. And so another part of me, likely the ego, that was angry that they were going to start doing these events right outside of my bedroom window, knowing that would cause noise and disruption for my household, and not sure of how long that will be going on in the future, how many times they'll be doing that. So out of fear, I just started talking about my situation in my house and my unhappiness about the situation, and are they going to make sure that they don't make, or how are they going to ensure that I'm not disturbed, and all these things, and my rights and my ego. And at the end, the whole time there's a part of me going, why, I want to be the change, so it was a bit combative, the way that I approached it. And why am I acting in this manner if my whole thing is to be the change? But I'm human, and I'm definitely nowhere near completely being the change that I want to see in the world. Still a lot of work to do there, probably many lifetimes. But afterwards, while this dialogue was happening and I was listening to what he was saying, and he was being pretty reasonable, he even offered to install a window for me for free, like to give me a new window to reduce noise for future occasions, or just in general. And at the very end, I apologized to him and I said, listen, I'm sorry that I didn't ask your name first. And he never mentioned anything about that. But I was very well aware that I was not acting the way that I would have wanted to act if I were the person being approached. And so I tried to be a bit of the change and, acknowledge my mistake and apologize and, recognize that my behavior was not as pleasant as it could have been. So there are, thousands of these types of experiences that happen throughout our lives. And at the same time, we look at the news and we look at the things in our life that we are unhappy about in the world, and then we point fingers and we say we don't like it and it needs to change. But then the inner work and the part of our own personalities is something that's like, I don't have time to do oftentimes, or I don't know how, or I don't have the tools, or whatever. And I just want to suggest the possibility, and maybe you would like to think about it, or not, that what if the way that the world works really is that way, is that how we are inside and how we present ourselves to the world is then reflected back to us in the world that we live in. So if we are dishonest, and I don't mean dishonest like I go around lying big lies to everybody everywhere I go. I mean dishonest like everybody's dishonest on some level, in some way, by even exaggerating. The Buddha said that if you knew the power of truth and the effect of a lie or untruth, you wouldn't lie even in jest. Which is a very extreme thing, right? Like now we're not going to joke anymore because I'm lying. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we think that we're being very like kind-natured, and we have all these, we do have all these great qualities, but that we're being so great, when actually these tiny little bits of dishonesty or stealing, like, oh, I'll just take a whole bunch of extra napkins at the restaurant, or oh, I'll just take a whole bunch of extra whatever and I don't say anything, or I'll just take somebody's something without mentioning it. At a deep level, that's stealing. So with all these tiny little grains of actions that are unwholesome, they sum up into massive amounts of exterior reflection, because there are, 7 billion of us. And if you have a whole bunch of tiny little lies or a whole bunch of tiny little acts of violence, then the outward expression is quite great. And so we see it reflected in our police, in our justice system, in our politics, in our media, in our everywhere in these big places that we're all upset about, and we're trying to protest and bring change through, changing all these systemic things, which is one aspect. I 100% agree that we need to change the systemic aspect, but what if we worked a little bit more on changing those things within ourselves and understanding that interconnectedness and the relationship that we have with our world, rather than thinking, well, I'm a great citizen and I do all these wonderful things, and, the justice system is just horrible, or the, big entities, the corporations, they're just horrible, they're always stealing our money. And it's like, well, how many times do you, skip the metro, oh, it's not important to pay because it's a corporation? I don't really understand. It seems like this very big double standard that we have going on most of the time with our own actions, behavior, and thought patterns, and then what we expect to see outside of us. And so I just invite you to contemplate and reflect a little bit on what that connection is for you, and how, if I'm not happy with the injustices in the world. I'm very unhappy about that. And today, the 1st of October, is a big reminder of those injustices and the threat to democracy. And I'm unhappy about that. So, in my life, in my microcosm of a world, then I want to be just. And I want to stand up for justice. And I don't want to allow the violence and the abuse and the little things that happen, that, I mean, in the big scale, they're little things, right? In my own little life, like the little interactions that happen. If I see, oh, this person is supporting these things, well, I don't need to support that. Rather than I just look past it and, you know, kind of ignore it and then just have fun anyway. It seems like a contradiction when I'm trying to see justice in the world. You can't, that's what's happening in politics, right? Is that we're just hiding the things that we don't want to see. And now it's gotten so out of hand that, well, you can't really hide much anymore. But let's try to be more of that change in our lives. So standing up. This has been a common theme in my life recently, and I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about, you know, standing up in social circles, and when you see something that isn't just, fair, and kind or peaceful, like, why don't people stand up for people? Almost, like, very much at all. It's very rare that I see that happen. And then the answer from that person's perspective, which is totally, I mean, I agree 100% and it's totally valid, is that, well, then it takes a toll on us emotionally, and we don't have so much emotional energy and strength, and we, you know, it can cause, especially if it's a big problem, somebody's causing a lot of harm to people in a social circle, to stand up and try to do something about that, can be very tricky, and also it can take a toll emotionally. And I thought, why are we so weak as human beings that we can't have the emotional energy to take care of each other? Why are we running away? Like, at this point, I had a family member tell me one time that on their birthday they received phone calls, but then they hung up right away because the person, I guess, called on accident, pressed call instead of sending a message, and you know, hung up before she had a chance to hear the birthday wish, or not, because maybe they just were trying to text. But that there's this, it's very common that people shy away from connection, from deep, true, real connection these days. And I'm wondering why, what is going on? Like, we're trying to, or I understand from what I hear, people want things to get better on this planet regarding humanity and the way we're treating it, the planet and each other. But then when the solutions are brought up, it's like, oh, yeah, my life is so, you know, or, oh, I don't have time, or something like this. And it's like, what is going on? Like, and the answer to me is very simple. It's just that we're missing practices and tools. So it's like, it would be the same if you said, hey, let's go move 150 tables right now. And people would say, in general, I've been observing people around Barcelona because I'm here, but in the city. And I'm like, yeah, in general, I'm looking at people's arms, and I see mostly people's arms are not fit to pick up and move 150 tables right this minute. If you just ask them at this moment, let's go spend an hour and a half moving these tables, I assume the majority of the response would be like, oh my goodness, like, that's daunting. Not like, hey, okay, come on, let's go, let's move these tables. And why is that? That's because we haven't been working out our arms and our legs and our muscles, right? And our, physical vitality and energy to be able to just stop what we're doing and go over and move those tables. But somebody who's been working out in the gym every day or for years, or, bodybuilder, or, a healthy, fit person, bastante, like, relatively fit, would likely not have any trouble saying, okay, like maybe they don't really like doing it, or they're not like enthusiastic about it, but they could just go and do it. And so I feel that it's the same for the emotional and mental aspect of our situations and things that we need to deal with. And it's like everything is so overwhelming and everything is so much, it's like even just like meeting up in person or having one-on-one conversations on the telephone, cause large amounts of anxiety for people. And I'm not judging this or saying there's anything wrong with that. I wish it weren't that way, because it seems to cause suffering for people. And I know that at this moment on this planet that we're at a place where there's a lot of imbalance and a lot of mental health issues and a lot of issues with emotions and all these things. But I feel like the answer is very simple. We just need these simple tools, which are like embodiment practices, which is just, you don't even need any money or any time, extra time or anything. You can even do it while you're doing your job. And nobody even has to know that you're doing it. It's just to, like, at this moment, just put some attention on your body while you're listening to me. And that's it. Start putting attention on the respiration more often. Meditation, sitting and practicing meditation for whatever period of time works for you, that would be better. But if you can't do that, or you don't want to do that, or isn't something that's inspiring to you at the moment, we can start with just simply putting our attention on our body while we're doing whatever we're doing. And so we're creating more self-awareness as we're doing whatever it is. So then, in the moment when I'm acting out of ignorance in a big way, right? There's also a part that's very much in touch with what's happening at the physical level, because I do have a strong embodiment practice and meditate a lot. So I'm aware of, like, there are tensions in my chest, and there's, maybe heat in my face, and maybe my breath is, maybe I'm not breathing as much, or maybe I'm breathing very fast or something because I'm irritated. With these embodiment practices, we become more self-aware, which is what we need to be able to make the change, to be the change. We have to first understand the interconnectedness of our own experience inside and outside, and then become aware of when we are acting in ways that are not productive for creating a healthy and harmonious, or co-creating a healthy and harmonious world that we live in. And I still have so many times where I'm like, why am I throwing this plastic into the trash? We're really at this very weird stage of evolution. But I also understand that we have to go through these experiences to become aware of them, to then figure out how to change the things that we are doing out of balance. So it's always like, come back into balance, come back into balance, come back into balance, don't judge it, come back into balance, middle path. The extremes are always showing us what can go wrong, how we can get out of balance. So today, the 1st of October, it was a day of a lot of extremes. And I choose to look at the hopeful part of it rather than the very, 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 very heavy and dark and violent and painful part of it. I acknowledge that, and I look at that, and I feel my own pain and experience and such, but I don't let that be the predominating force in my life. That is there, it's given space. I use it to transform myself and to be inspired to see like what I don't want in the world. But I don't sit there and like, hey, look, all these things happened on that day and let's all remember all that stuff. Like that, I have no reason. That doesn't serve me. That just brings me down. So that's present and I am in touch with it. But I'm like, okay, so let's see how I can use the hope and the inspiration, because that day was a victory. That day was something I'd never seen. I'd never seen the power of the people in action in such a way in my life. And to be a part of that, and to stand for democracy, and to stand with the people, and see all the different, every kind of person, and just keep standing for democracy, and keep standing for democracy, and standing together. Fempinha. Like, it was, I think, it was just such a spectacular event in my life and in this decade that the whole world should know about, because it can inspire everyone to be the change and to do it anyway, like in the face of all the hard shit. Like, yeah, it's really hard to confront a friend or to face a problem and to communicate. It's hard. But if we keep running away and ignoring it and not facing things, I mean, that's what corporations do. You have a problem with a corporation and they just like, they don't face it. I mean, some do, but I'm not going to say all corporations never face anything. But the part that we don't like about corporations, and the capitalism and all these things, the bad part is that there's dishonesty and there's avoidance and there's a lack of care that's happening and there's a lack of respect. And all of those things are also happening within us. And so why don't we like put our attention on, let's see, how can I become a little bit stronger? Instead of like, hey, how can I become so strong so I can look good, just for, I don't know, just for some likes or some, that's a whole nother thing, right? Because we're doing that because we're filling this emptiness inside with this, we're compensating a lot of times for other things that are not strong. But, hey, how about I want to face, maybe I don't want to face, but how about I want to see a better world, so I'm going to work a little bit more on facing my conflicts with other people, or treating people better, or, just being kinder, more compassionate, having compassion as a goal. These little things, which I know, I would say, in my experience, I mean, when I look around, mostly people are being kind. But this avoidance and not facing when there is a problem, and the quick tongue to, insult or something like that, or the comments on videos and posts and things like that it's like, let's argue about my opinion about this thing. It's like, I'm learning how to be quieter about my opinion and just let other people, like, I don't want to feed into that anymore, because, and I still do it, but I'm really, really working on it, because I don't, and I'm talking about, obviously, I'm sharing my opinion here, but I mean, commenting on when somebody else shares their opinion, me having to bring in my opinion and counter, act their opinion, like, or speak against their opinion, or tell them why I'm right and why I know something that is correcting them. And it's like, why can't we use that energy to develop those skills for us to, co-create a world that children can feel safe in, that people are not not wanting to be here at all. Like, young people I know don't want to be here. They're like, what is this crap? And just don't really have much of a clue as to what their vision is for the future. They're like, ugh. So yeah, I think it would be nice if we spent a little bit more time trying to be the change, so that they can learn how to do it and live in, a nicer world. Because when I look back at the world and see the big things that are going on, and the injustices, and the pain and suffering and all these things that we're creating ignorantly, it just seems so unnecessary. So I invite you to just take a look inside and see, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm contributing a little bit to all this, and maybe there's something that I could change that then will reflect outside and help us to live in a more peaceful and harmonious and just world, where everybody feels safe and secure and supported to be who they are, and not have this need, because of that, not feeling safe and secure to be who they are, have this need to try to control how other people are. I mean, it's just seems so silly and unnecessary, and like we're just wasting energies. So yeah, I hope that this has been inspiring or entertaining or both, and thought-provoking, and that you considered having a look at what the 1st of October in Catalunya means. Yeah, much love, and have a beautiful weekend. And yeah, I just have a lot of faith in humanity, and I hope you do too.